So maybe I'll invite Mr. James O to the stage, and the four of us, we're going to have a discussion. Can invite Professor Childs and Professor Zurlo back. Hi, can you see us?
Yes, we can.
I think there's some common threads here in the three presentations today. And one of those commonalities that I observed is maybe it's the word risk. It appeared in almost all of the presentations. And the unknown and uncertainty, or VUCA. How do we, if we are talking about an entrepreneurial spirit, we need to embrace risk, don't we? We need to embrace uncertainty. How do we address that, that rather uncomfortable kind of state in the design process? Maybe we'll start with this question. I know it's a bit, it takes a bit of thinking. Maybe I'll invite, maybe James can go first.
Yeah, I think risk is really one of the key terms in all entrepreneurs, because as you are running a business, you're gonna do a bit of investment before you get some return. So basically it is like an investment, just like you buying a stock or some other kinds of investment. So this probably needing to be managed. Just like our company, we promote a lot of entrepreneurships, and we got a lot of initiatives as well. Say, for example, at the same time, we are running, say, 10 experiments of new ideas. We do not expect all 10 to be successful. We accept failure. We do have one successful story that probably can already cover the losses of the other 9. And that is the interpretation of risk from my point of view. I think it is really a certain thing you need to experience during the course of your entrepreneurship. Yeah, that's my thinking on it.
Right. Yeah. That's interesting because, one success case is already enough to cover all the failures. That's kind of like a safety net, kind of.
Yeah, exactly. Just like the failed project I just mentioned this afternoon. So we failed at least 3 or 4. Yeah. It was until Google Van, and it is a successful story. That is kind of like risk and reward as well. We managed to fail a few projects. With one successful story, that could be already a good reward.
Right. How about Professor Zurlo? You mentioned VUCA. We're living in a very unpredictable world now. How do you deal with risk in the design process?
Risk is also let's say the soul of creativity, So because without risk you don't have creativity, and without creativity you don't have risk. So you need to leave the comfort zone every time you are facing new problems, adopting a creative approach, to solve these problems. And there is a legend, I think, that coming from the Chinese ideogram for risk, and sometimes we link this ideogram even to the word opportunity, So when you face risk, you are facing also opportunities. I don't know if it's true.
It is true.
Or a fake interpretation, but coming from United States, I think was John Fitzgerald Kennedy that he used for the first time this idea of risk/opportunity. And another thing I think is we need to consider creativity like, let's say, a kind of cybernetic process. The quality of the output depends on the quality of the input. So you can reduce risks, or maybe you can perceive the reduction of risk depending on the quality of inputs. So more you do research, better maybe you can manage risks. And another word very close to the idea of risk is bias. usually designers browse within biases. We accept biases. We learn how to face biases. And this is not the same for businessmen. This is not the same for the world of business. And also because they try in every way to avoid biases. So we need to create environments bias friendly. I don't know how to do it, but this is a human condition, okay. Let's say. So that we need to consider even in a VUCA environment like the one we are facing today.
Yeah, creating environments that embrace biases. That's interesting. That's interesting. I think accepting diversity is part of it, I guess. Acknowledging differences, creating that environment that's safe for that to be expressed is certainly something we can try.
You know that there is a book, The Fearless Company. So now is a book orienting the HR and businessmen to create organizations where you can accept, let's say, biases, let's say, the experimentation without fear, engaging every employee. So maybe we need to adopt this fearless attitude, let's say, within the organizations in order to accept risks and accept biases.
I guess different biases mean that we're looking at a problem or a situation from different angles. We're trying to evaluate all of these different angles. So yeah, that's interesting. Professor Charles, how about prototyping? Can prototyping help us reduce risk or help us to gain perspective?
Well, I think you know the answer to that already. Yes, of course, prototyping fast prototyping, early stage, within a day or 2 days of an idea is vital in my world, because it allows you to really see what somebody else thinks of an early stage idea. I see ideas as nascent, vulnerable. So it is vital to recognize that ideas, early stage ideas are nascent and vulnerable, and therefore treat them as such. They are yet to be developed. So what a prototype does for you, an early stage prototype, it may not have all of the elements of the invention of the proposition, but it allows you to interact with somebody else or a group of people, describe it, pretend, even if it's a pretend prototype. It allows you to do those interactions, and it allows a dialogue which enables embodiment and development of the idea. So to me, that's the power of a prototype on day 2 of a project.
Yeah, I want to follow up with that from your comment, Professor Charles. How do we make this kind of ambiguity or uncertainty or risk known to the stakeholders? Because when we work with clients or stakeholders, there is this tendency that we have the solution. And we're certain about our expertise and our knowledge is going to be fine for fulfilling their needs. How do we communicate or get them to also adopt this mindset that there is a risk involved and there is uncertainty involved? I invite all 3 of you to respond to that as well.
So obviously, for some early stage developments, you will have your own community of practice, trusted people that you will interact with who may step into a role. So it may not be appropriate to share an idea, an unprotected idea, outside of a very close community of practice. But I'll let our colleagues speak to this topic as well.
Okay. Yeah.
For me, my experience is from my point of view, say for example, when there is some new projects that's gonna be containing a bit of risk, we certainly do communicate with stakeholders on, just like doctor, when there is an operation you mentioned, there's chance of failure. And so this gonna be in our mindset first, because we are running the business with all the stakeholders together. And then, but of course, a lot of the things we can do in advance to minimize the risk. Just like prototyping for us is doing a bit more research. But of course, research is not a promising thing to make sure the thing won't fail. But of course, I think, yeah, doing this kind of like homework to minimize the risk together with numbers. I think that is also important, yeah, with numbers. Because when there is a risk, you're gonna manage the risk to be lowest, and that should be done by a little bit of calculations. No matter it is financial calculations or whatever, just like financing, you got the beta, you got the Sharpe ratio, something like that, right? So doing our work of new initiatives or some risky projects, we need to manage the financial, just like any other business. So, but of course, I think all in all, our company or I am encouraging these kind of failures, because failures is not the destination. What we learn from the failed projects could be very precious to our next success. So, I would put the thing like this. Yeah.
Of course, we have a Chinese saying as well, and the Chinese saying is the mother of failure is the mother of success is failure. 失敗乃成功之母. So it is built into our culture, I guess, in a way. How about Professor Zurlo? How do you feel about getting stakeholders or clients embrace this mindset that there is risk involved?
I think that, a specific capability of design is speaking different languages, and you need to find, let's say, common ground to communicate with the different stakeholders, and so understanding how do they make sense about the proposals you are showing them. So we are very well equipped as designers because the training of designers is related to many disciplines. So we learn a little bit about financial items, or something related to marketing, something related to technical issues, and then we have the possibility, even something related to let's say social issues, so psychology, so understanding the way you can relate to these different people. And the role of prototypes and the role of visual thinking is very important, because you have the possibility to enable conversation among stakeholders, and also to solicit, to elicit, let's say, their points of view, and to come back to your ideas, to focus better, and so on. About the failure, I agree with the previous answer, but it depends on the cultural framework. Because if we refer to Mediterranean or Italian cultural framework, failure is not a good thing.
I think that's the same for a lot of
you need to
cultures
avoid
too,
failures. You need to avoid failures. This is so for this reason we need to let's say manage as better as possible the early stages, so for the new ideas, so anticipating, let's say, all the critical issues that could come later. Otherwise, you go to a failure very, let's say, with a very bad perception, so for you and for other people.
I remember, I think a couple of years ago, I saw a post that was going around, a tweet or something, about a person having created a CV of failures. I thought that was a very meaningful kind of exercise. We should wear failure as a badge of honor, because that that shows our experience and what we've learned, hopefully. But I guess that's a mindset that is quite ingrained in our culture, in our education system, in fact, that we should avoid failure. So maybe in the school environment, education environment is a safe environment to embrace that, maybe. There are some questions that I've received online. Let me start with this one. This one is for James, but I guess we can all respond to that. What kind of values do you consider the most important for customer satisfaction?
What kind of values do I think the most important to our customer satisfaction? So I think it resonates our own culture as well, I think, yeah. Because I think the values of the company definitely reflect not only for our internal purposes. They are the values that we would like to promise for our customer. I think that is our mindset as well. For sure, we deliver happiness, right? We would like to have our customer to be fulfilled by not only get your job done. More than that is that we hope to create a little bit more than that is about happiness.
Not just a task-based kind of thinking.
Yeah, exactly. So I think these values are also important internally as well as externally to our customers. Of course, no bullshit. We say, for example, if there are complaints, we would hope our company would resolve it as soon as possible. No bullshit, right? So, of course, just like what the risk question is about our company do encourage the dare to venture as well. Yeah, I think these kind of values are also important to our customers as well. I hope this answered the question.
It made me think of something about KPIs because I've used a lot of services where the guy who's helping me would say, "Oh, thanks for your call. Can you do a survey? Can you help us fill out a survey? You need to give us at least a 10, otherwise it's going to be disaster for us." How do you feel about this KPI-driven kind of a customer satisfaction model?
Yeah, I think it is good. It is good. Yeah. Definitely, we have that system as well. Okay. I think it's the same as any other kind of platforms or SaaS model businesses. The kind of like rating system is quite critical for the health of the platform.
But a lot of people might rig the system in a way.
Yeah. Sometimes it does. So I think it is, first of all, it gives a number. Number is, we don't lie. So the rating system itself, say for example, our drivers. Our customer probably will rate our drivers every time finishing the trip. And this could provide a benchmark for us to evaluate everything. So that is quite critical. But of course, to a certain extent, we won't push it to the extremist. Is that, of course, there are lots of qualitative qualitative feedbacks that are also critical. But yeah, this kind of like rating or in the framework of KPI, we do encourage it very much as well. Yeah, because it does reflect more clear point of view to the stakeholders that whether it is pass or fail. I think it is universal and it is been implemented very early in our ages as well, just like in school.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
yes.
that is indeed a KPI. So in this occasion in business, I think it is the same. And it is quite good for the growth or the health of our business.
How about qualitative measures? Do you do any kind of customer kind of interviews or focus groups or things like that?
Yeah. We do time by time. Occasionally, we will trigger some kind of like research. Of course, quantitative by KPI or the rating, and then qualitative to really listen to the users or customers' point of view. Those qualitative feedback won't be reflected in the quantitative ones. So those are also critical to our growth, how to push our service level to the next level, kind of thing.
How about Professor Childs, Professor Zurlo? Would you like to speak to that? Customer satisfaction.
Well, of course, the value is vital, and if a customer doesn't perceive value, we all know the outcome. I want to pull in a couple of the thoughts together. With Bladebug, these funny robots which go on the wind turbine blades, our customers are the users of these robots, the people running the energy companies or running the wind farms. We find that they actually suggest ideas that we did not realize, and they actually add value to our product. And it's in our interactions with their ideas that they then downgrade or upgrade their evaluations of us. So they suggest, oh, your robot could do this. It's then how we respond to that. We may not have thought of what they suggested. So they've actually added value to us. But we as a company need to be very careful how we manage our reaction to their ideas and their contribution. Otherwise, they're going to be offended and will, and because they're a client, it's absolutely vital that we respect the clients, we respect the customers.
Yeah, that's very good. Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah, how about Professor Zurlo?
It's a word problem, not value. So when we talk about value, we can have many different interpretations of value. From my point of view, as a professor of design, I like to stress more another word, purpose, because we have just done research with a local bank here in Italy, exploring the way people make sense of the offerings of companies, and more than 50% they look at the purposes of the companies. So which are the values related to ethical implications, social justice, sustainability they are pushing in their daily activities, and then they choose, and they want to spend more money sometimes if they recognize this kind of values related to the offerings of this company. And there is also another way to define value. So the possibility to engage customers for some kind of services today. You create, let's say, enabling platform to co-create with the end users the final value of the solutions. And it's becoming more and more important. So it's also a way to give more value to the final solution to the end users, because you engage them to define the final, let's say, shape of the solution itself. So it's a very intriguing topic with different interpretations.
I very much agree with what you said about putting purpose in the middle rather than the user, because the purpose is meaningful for whoever is using the service or product. So I thought that was an interesting way of looking at it. And I guess the idea of purpose changes according to context as well. What Professor Childs was saying, the original purpose of the blade bug might be, they might find other purposes for it, or other ways of using it. So I guess that's also very relevant to what we're trying to do. Okay, the second question is directed to Professor Zurlo, but I guess the same. We can have a conversation about it as well. Some companies fail despite using design thinking. There it is again, failure. According to you, what practices can the company take up to support design thinking?
I'm used to say that when we talk about design thinking, we suffer a kind of toolism. I don't know if it's the right word in English. So we use a lot of tools, no? And even latestism, the latest tool available, no? So I think this is a big problem, because if you want to adopt, let's say, a creative attitude within the organization, it's not enough just involving a designer or an expert of design thinking for a one-shot activity, for one workshop, and so on. You need to create a design culture within the organization. And then if you want to create a design culture, you need iterative processes, not just one-shot application of design thinking. The failures come from the application for just one time. No? So you have some managers that they think that if they adopt for one time a workshop of design thinking, they become creative-driven companies. This is not true. It's not true, because you need to change the culture of the company, and you can do this with an iterative way. So again, changing even the mentality of the employees within the organization. Let's say, how to create a creative confidence within the organization. You need to follow the example of video game, so with a process of levels that grow up along the time with micro successes, so with micro challenges and so on, in order to create a design culture through practice. This is another very important thing. Using practices as a way to create this design culture, I think is very important.
Yeah, toolism. Yeah, I like that word too. We run into. There are just a flood of tools that are available everywhere, and it seems that some people think, if I can pick up this tool, I just follow the steps, I can have a creative idea, or I can be successful, have a successful product or service or whatever. But we all know that's not true, and it comes down to mindset and culture. I very much agree with that. Professor Childs, would you like to also respond to that?
We all love design thinking, and it is incredibly powerful, and it's a topic that has reverberated around the world, and the design world has benefited so much from millions of people outside of the design world using it and developing it. So I still see huge value in design thinking. It's so much better than it was 20 years ago. For having had those additions, part of design thinking, and just a part, and it depends upon who's doing, which group is doing the design thinking. Part of it is experimentation and exploration, and I think those facets, which you could say are embodied in aspects of prototyping, but exploring ideas and experimenting with ideas, it's not something that is 10 minutes or 1 hour or 2 hours within the workshop, which I think Francesco was just talking about there. It is something that can take time. And those explorations and experimentations are, to me, central to design thinking. And in the absence of those, then you probably will not get the successes you hope for. Embrace experimentation and exploration and the other facets of design thinking, and then the outcomes will be so much richer.
I very much agree with that, and there's a danger in looking at design thinking as a procedural thing, but is an easy trap to fall into for a lot of people who are not really in the design, in the design realm. Is that design is a procedure just like anything else, but that's a very often a misunderstanding. How about James? Would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, I agree with them very much as well. Embrace experimenting is a key of the practice, I think, because I remember there's a framework called a spiral thing or something like that. I think when we are designing something, no matter it is a product, new business model, whatever, failure seldom is the destination, and usually it is just one of the process. For the spiral framework, it is like you have an idea and you produce it, but it failed. And that is a feedback that you need to think about and experimenting it again to make it work again. If it fails again, that is the other feedback loop to you to think about why it doesn't work. And you find out, it is because of that reason. Because throughout this experimentation thing, and then you can push your stuff to be working, and even more is better and better. So I would say if time and resources allowed, failure shouldn't be always the destination. It should be part of the processes.
Right. Yeah. You haven't got a solution yet. You failed. You need to go back. You need to do more. You haven't ended the process yet. Yeah. I very much agree with that too. There's a question directed to Professor Childs by Ika Katunen. And we live in a changing world, you said. Nevertheless, we produce change makers. You said that. Isn't there a contradiction? Do we need to accelerate? Do we need accelerated change?
Okay, great comment. Thank you for that. And yes, if you are a change maker, you are causing change. Every idea we bring to the world is going to cause change. So you've absolutely picked up upon part of the nature of what we do. We live, we cause change. We can also be subject to change and respond to that. So I absolutely accept the comment. Great insight and well posed. Designers, because we cause change, there is responsibility associated with us. Business people cause change. There is a responsibility there. Sai Rai Kung a few years ago came up with the comment that creativity is imagination with responsibility. And I love this comment.
Yes, I love that too.
Each of us causing change have a notion of responsibility that goes with that.
Do we have a responsibility then to keep things at status quo if that's what the design of the situation is calling for? To not do anything, to stay put. Okay, I will start this, but I'm sure our colleagues will want to say something too. From my perspective, when I look around our world, I can see things where improvements can be made. Now, that's my personal judgment. It will be subjective. And if you've got the capabilities to make improvements, surely you have a responsibility to engage. Would you like to respond to that, James, Professor Zurlo?
It's a bit difficult for me.
So there's always room for improvement, in other words, right?
Yeah. I don't know if just the idea of change today, I think is close to the idea of complexity. So because we live in an era of continuous changes. I remember, a small table designed by Ettore Sottsass in 1981 for Memphis movement, and the name of this small table, is a coffee table, was the structure tremble. The structure tremble, and we are in 80s. So the perception at that time that something was changing. Think about digitalization, the pathway of digitalization, and so on. The approach of design maybe is the right one for facing changes. Ways changing situation. I'd like to refer to the work of Edgar Morin, a French philosopher. So because he did, did a research understanding the right way to face complexity and changes, using the reference to the idea of strategy. And in the description of Morin, the idea of strategy is very similar, it's very close to the design approach. So adopting a kind of circular view, not fixing your approach coming from a specific corner of the problem, of the space of the problem, but browsing in a circular view. And we used to interact with our colleague coming from engineering schools, and they observe us from this point of view, and they say, okay, you are able to change your mind because you don't fix, poles, but you change always, depending on the context and the situations, your points of view to find final solutions. So it's a very intriguing, this idea of change, but if you refer this to the idea of complexity and liquidity, we live in a liquid world, that's another way to understand this idea of change.
For sure. Yeah. I tend to think that, if the situation calls for keeping something at the status quo, that could be an appropriate solution as well. I mean, it depends. My 2 cents. There is another question for James. As we found that you work very smoothly with your partners in operating GoGo X, may I ask if you have any tips or experiences for us, current students, who consider to start the startup with friends, especially how to work together? I think I know kind of where that comes from. In a group project situation, I guess a lot of students face that. How do you enter into a business relationship maybe after graduation? What are your tips or experiences you want to share?
Yeah, I think this is nothing to do with all the leadership forum on design education. It's more like on be a gentle person. First of all, who said we went smoothly? Right. We did have a lot of arguments.
So that's the backstory now you tell.
Yeah, we had a lot of conflicts. But I think that is the mentality that you have to get yourself prepared, that between people, you are always different individuals, and it is always like you will have different opinions and different tone of voice, different thinkings. And that is what you need to get yourself prepared to work smoothly with your partners, with your friends, etc. For whatever conflicts or controversial topics that's happening, make sure you're not going into fight or flight mode. They are always in between. It is a spectrum, so you can basically discuss and get an alignment. And what is more magical is that I think I also learned from my agency Expose is that sometimes you won't be getting the consent of other people to use your way to work it out. And what is more important is that you get yourself prepared to get a consent of agreeing others and get others' idea executed out. I think that is also the other magic that I experienced when working with others, with my partners. And of course, yeah, conflicts, arguments, they always happen. Make sure you know that it is the truth. It is just like a marriage, just like a friendship that you would face, and it is normal in your life, and especially in work. Say, for example, I, with my partners, been for like 9 years, 8 years. Of course, we did have a lot of arguments. You ask my colleagues, she experienced it every day, right? So there are quite a few times we argue to really hitting table, things like that. But make sure we to the topic itself, and we can get a consent and execute. I think that is the magic part. Yeah.
I'm sure that's part of the design process as well. I mean, to offer a different perspective, sometimes in a very strong way, that can also work. How about Professor Charles, Professor Zurlo, is there anything you would like to add in terms of collaborating with others in a team?
I'm just going to say this on collaboration. Collaboration is a privilege and a delight, to interact with other people. Somebody else's mind, their ideas. That's just a pleasure to engage with.
Maybe I can stress something related to educational processes, because when we talk about collaboration, we are talking about soft skills. And we have a big problem sometimes, because our courses, our educational patterns, they don't favor the adoption of these soft skills, related to negotiations, to leadership, to entrepreneurship. So as the possibility to take the initiative within the groups, understanding diversity, respecting diversity, improving your empathetic skills, so to understand the point of view of the other people. And also another very important thing is to, let's say, I want to refer to the work of Henry Dreyfus. So Dreyfus say that, among the capabilities of design, the most important ones are related to diplomacy. So the capability to relate to every person with different points of view, and to be polyglot, as I mentioned before, talking about stakeholders. So the possibility to understand even the basic words of another language, coming from other backgrounds, coming from people within different silos in the organizations and so on. So a big challenge for us as educators is understanding how to improve these soft skills. I think it could be the next challenge for us.
Yeah, definitely agreed. Especially if we need to, we definitely need to work with people from different disciplines. And also to communicate. I think you emphasize communication quite a bit, James. Communicate with stakeholders and with users, everybody. I think that empathy is very important. That respect for diversity, of being able to speak different languages, not literally different languages, but I guess different languages of languages of different disciplines, I guess, would be important. I just want to ask did you want to?
Yeah, I just
okay,
would like to say the answers from both professors delight me a lot as well. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it is really a pleasure to work with people and communicate with people. And as a designer point of view, it is our characteristic and our need to really learn how to communicate with, no matter it is client, its users. Yeah, I think these are quite important.
Yeah, I want to maybe open up another conversation about maybe it's more of a personal one. I guess we studied design at different places or different times, and now the world has evolved really a lot. I mean, since we were in school. Do you think that the design education then prepared you to face the present day problems now? Or for me personally, I don't think I could imagine anything like what we are facing today. Although there are a lot of transferable skills. How do you guys feel in terms of your personal experience with design education? Who would like to start first? Maybe Professor Charles, would you like to have a go at it?
Okay, so I'm having fun in design education. Had the privilege of learning design, learning engineering, setting up degrees, setting up a school of design engineering, and engaging around the world in design education. So my personal experience is just a fun world. What I really love about the subject of design is doing design and setting people off. So you meet an 18-year-old who wants to learn to sketch and then wants to learn gravity sketch as well. So they go from sketching straight into a VR headset. This is just an absolute privilege to engage with. You then meet older people who may have been around the block and they've got business experience or work experience, and they're in they're pivoting, and they discover design thinking. And this, their eyes are open and they realize and they embrace this notion of exploration and experimentation and working with people and for people. What is better than design education taken broadly? I've set, yes. Francesco, I think I've set you up to engage in this one. Go for it.
Anyway, this is a $1 million question. So because it's not so easy to understand how to plan new educational patterns and so on. But, we need to consider a very important thing that, the cognitive models of the new generations is changing. Because it's a more, synthetical way of learning by, let's say, a kind of continuous pattern recognition, no? Because of the way they interact with digital devices, with the short information. Think about Twitter, or think about the TED, the TED Talks, and also most of my students, they learn a lot, but with just 20 minutes of communication. So my idea is that we need to consider this, and we need to leave even the institutional shape of the professors. So becoming maybe more coach for our students to let's say to push their soft skills. And we need to leave the idea that we can propose to them maps of knowledge, complete maps of knowledge. We need to provide to them, from my point of view, compasses in order to understand how to orient themselves within this big mass of knowledge, accessible every time, everywhere. Thanks to the digitalization. The digitalization is changing the way we learn, the way we can grasp knowledge from everywhere, every time we want, and so on. Look at the way it's changing, even the professional training today. Now you have a company called Quantic. Quantic proposed asynchronous micro learnings about business administration. And this company, it is getting a big success. Comparing this company with Harvard Business School, with MIT, with Stanford, with the temples of teaching business issues. So new actors proposing a different way of learning. We need to consider that the environment is changing. So if you want to plan really activities and way to engage students differently from the past.
I guess the school or the university is only one of the touch points of the entire learning experience, and I very much agree with that. As a teacher, we're very much facilitating the experience. Or sometimes curating. I mean, even that is quite a strong word, I think, because there are so many sources, so many channels for learning. How about James?
Yeah, that's also a meeting question to me. But I think one key thing I could think of is to bring in the perspectives of the modern society into education. I think that is quite critical part of the future education of about design or any other subjects. Say, for example, technology. Technology has been changing us, right? The older methodology of thinking design may get evolved based on this evolvement. So I think a bit of different perspectives can help quite a lot. Say, for example, battery, right? We used to have that big battery with only a small amount of voltages, and now it is compact as like this, and it is offering us enough energy for the whole day, for the whole family, things like that, right? So this kind of technology change gonna bring some disruption And these disruption could trigger, or use your word, curate, the creative sparks of all students for designing for next generations. Say, for example, technology on interfaces. User interfaces and user experience have been of the most demanding position in the world right now, right? Yeah. Why is that? It's because technology. Yeah. I think bringing different perspectives, especially on the technology to education, would be one of the big things to encourage from.
But I guess the thinking that we develop in the students or in ourselves would be to be able to kind of think through every kind of possibility in the future that are not really there yet. You know, to think of how to deal with that would be important. I think transferable skills would be, you know, very, very key to all this. And I guess, you know, we've moved on so much from kind of like a production kind of mentality, making things. We still make things, to more of a knowledge production mode of learning. I see, you know, the way we teach or the way we learn is knowledge production as well, isn't it? And it kind of moves things forward. We don't have even the grasp of what's the body of knowledge of design, or where is the boundary of this discipline. We don't have a grasp of that. But that is an opportunity for us, I think. Any questions from the floor at the lecture theatre? Would anybody like to ask a question? Yes, Sylvia.
Hello, I'm Sylvia. I really enjoy your talks. I inspired by what Professor Zurlo did the research on compare the design and the tech intensive startup. So my question actually is, today when the designer is talking startup, they always thinking do some design business. But why not to work with tech startup? Because if worldwide we see there's 1,000 startup, I think design startup may just one of them, right? There's a lot of actually is a tech startup or social startup, right? So definitely James actually is not working on design startup, but he's a designer's role. So inspired by Professor Zurlo's work, you compare the two sides. But actually do have thinking, our purpose of education also to open the mind for the designer to think how to work with a tech startup. So the question is not only for Professor Zurlo, but also for James, and also for Charles, Professor Charles, because I don't know how to define his role. He's engineering or design. He's also teaching RCA. And those project definitely is kind of tech startup project, but with good design. So what is actually their viewpoint about designers' role and their potential to work with tech startup? Yeah, this is.
Yeah, maybe Professor Zurlo can try, have a go first. Yeah.
Just to understand better, the question is, what do you mean by textile?
Startup, tech startup.
Okay.
Yes.
So sorry, because you know the sound was not so good. Okay. So in that research, we found some differences, but we provided even some solutions for designers in order to fit with the framework of the tech-driven startups. And so we define some methodologies, some tools, even some chunk of knowledge good to stay close to the traditional tech-driven startups. But we have a problem. Now we have a problem. I mentioned this problem during my presentation. Every time a student of mine is proposing a startup to our TTO, Technology Transfer Office, in order to find a patent or defining a patent and so on, we have a lot of problems. Polytechnico is a school of engineering, and they know how to patent, solution coming from the engineering schools, engineering students, and so on. There are some spin-off coming from these inventions, let's say, related to specific technologies, solutions, technological solutions. But when we come with our idea, that usually ideas are a mix of existing technologies, discovering, let's say, meaning, a new sense for these technologies, and fitting with requests coming from the society, from the culture, from the users. It's a sense-making process. It's a sense-making process, finding epiphanies for existing technologies, maybe for just one technology, or maybe putting together a few technologies, and we find a wall. So it's a big problem sometimes. So to recognize this kind of design-intensive solutions, design-intensive startups. My hope is to show what is the let's say the progression in the market of these specific design-intensive startups, in order to create a welcome environment within a School of Engineering, as Politecnico di Milano is. Anyway, we have a long way, a long route a long avenue, to make understandable this approach for startups coming from design.
Yeah, I believe there's a lot of room for the two to work together. Yeah. How about Professor Childs? Any insights about that?
So let's talk about the benefit of the collective mind. So collaboration is wonderful, and so a technology company or a technology startup benefiting from collaborating with people capable of design thinking, or who embrace it and are able to practice it, well, it makes sense to me. I think for tech startup, there's actually so much. This is a rich question, so it's a great question from the audience. We have tech startups. We also have companies, big companies, the OEMs, with a huge body of technologies that are yet to find a market. And so you've got this sort of basket of technologies, each of them worthy of further work and developing into something for society. So I don't just see tech startups as the small group of people with some new technology. I also see tech startup as coming out of the big companies. How about GoGoX, with all of their ideas that they've yet to launch into the marketplace? Is it a new division? Is it a spin out? What is it? But it's certainly taking a smart technology and bringing it to the world. And I think that can benefit so much through collaboration.
Yeah, I very much agree with that.
Yeah, I think from my point of view, I would think tech startup is kind of like a buzzword of the day. After all, think back about different companies like Tom Dyson, like, is it a tech startup? Tesla, is it a tech startup? Indeed, they are also technology-driven companies, right? So to me, I think to rip off all the buzzwords and surface, they are still the same. They are indeed crafting a product that could sell, create values for the customers. So I think, I'm not sure whether it answered the question, but to me, I would rather think these are the same kind of companies that serve the same purpose. It is maybe a bit of different technology behind, but the core or the human behavior is the same. We are creating some products, no matter it's SaaS model, it is an actual product, it is still a thing that could sell. Yeah. So the core or the belief of the stakeholders or the owner should be the same. Create a product that serves the purpose of customers. Yeah.
Right. Very good answers. I don't know if we have time for one more question because we've been talking for almost an hour, believe it or not. Yeah, just one word answers, okay? Because we need to close the session. What is the most essential skill for a design graduate to survive in the industry next year? One thing. I know this is going to be very difficult, but I'll give you 2 seconds to think about that.
I'll go communication.
Right. And then?
For me, curiosity.
Sorry? Curiosity.
Curiosity.
Mm.
I think it is still the same. It is about a good design thinking to solve solutions, to solve problems. Yeah.
I'll have a go as well. Collaboration. So these are all soft skills, which is interesting. Yeah. Well, it's been fantastic having a conversation with Professor Child, Professor Zurlo, and also James. But like all good things, we need to end. And I want to thank all of you for the stimulating talks and also the animated discussions. Hope to see you soon. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
you, Professor.
Let's thank the speakers.
Maybe in presence. So thank you so much.
Thank you
Thank
very
you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Goodbye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
再见.
Right. So that concludes our program for the day. I won't take up too much of your time, but I just want to thank all 6 of the speakers because I really enjoyed all of the presentations, also the discussions today. I think it's all very relevant to us. Entrepreneurship is very timely. I think, you know, I want to echo what Professor Lee said this morning about designers being enablers. I very much agree with that perspective. As I said earlier, you know, design was very much about production of things. It evolved into a service, of offering a service to other people to solve their problems. And now, you know, we're designing systems that enable things to be done. We are producing knowledge. I very much believe, you know, this evolution is very natural and very relevant to today's world, which is very unpredictable. I think Nigel Cross, in his book Designerly Ways of Knowing, said that you know, we have the sciences and we have the humanities, you know, traditional common domains of knowledge, but design is a third culture that sits in the middle of these two. So, you know, as Professor Lee said, design as a liberal arts. I think it's along those lines, I think. You know, of course, you know, we all know that design is not something that tags on to the end of a process like business or technology. We all know that by now. Design should go in tandem from the beginning of the process to generate, to kind of identify opportunities, identify needs and opportunities. So I think in the last panel, we agreed that soft skills are very important in the 21st century, especially when we're in an age where we need to kind of be resilient because we don't really know what's going on. The traditional way of looking at education as a repeatable kind of model. I know in scientific thinking, you know, we replicate experiments and we should expect the same outcomes, but increasingly we're not dealing with that anymore. Design is a little bit different. So I also want to quote Bruce Mao. He says that designers should be optimists because we are always future-oriented. We are always dealing with the future. We have a vision first for the future, and then we actually go ahead and put it into action to make it into a reality. So by default, if we don't have that kind of optimism for the future, it's impossible for us to make improvements and to contribute to humanity. So I very much agree with that. And design was developed from commerce, you can say, with capitalism, with the Industrial Revolution. But we've moved on so much from that now. We are designing not just for human beings, but we're designing for the planet that we're living in as well. So we used to say, design is to create desires. So people spend more money. Good design is good business. I think we need to rethink that. And I think as entrepreneurial designers, we need to even think a little bit harder about that. We've explored alternative models, circular economy, the triple bottom line. I think these are the things that we really need to kind of address and keep on coming up with alternative models to practice design. So I'm from the Hong Kong Design Institute. We have more than 20 high diploma programs in design. We're under the vocational and professional training and education model, under the Vocational Training Council. But we too need to rethink because of all the things that we've mentioned today. We need to find a new way of preparing our students for the future. So design thinking has been a very much the heart of the main underpinning of all of our programs in the Institute. But we also realize there are limitations to that. But that underpinning is still very important. We have an E5, a model called E5 Actions: engage, envision, evaluate, experiment, and enable. And one of the major challenges that we feel about teaching design thinking or user-centered design is the idea that I mentioned earlier about understanding design as a procedure, which is very much not the case. So kind of be able to move fluidly between these types of actions, that's very important in what we're trying to educate our students. We've also been providing training to government departments on design thinking. We want to emphasize how they can bring some of these mindsets, not just the tools, but the mindset into the daily work. And eventually they affect how we live in Hong Kong as well. So that's something that we're very happy to be doing. So yeah. Yep. So in closing, I'd like to thank the speakers again, all 6 of our speakers today, for sharing the valuable insights in the presentations and discussions. And I'd like to thank the Poly School of Design for being a partner. It's been quite a few years. It's been a very happy partnership. And I want to thank Professor Lee for the support, and for Dr. Liu, and also staff at Poly U who've helped to make this event possible. So last but not least, I'd like to thank our audience for attending today's forum, and I hope to see you again next year. Thank you very much.